Start talking about delight. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Blood Bowl Tavern. It's great to be back. I've not been in the tavern for a while. It's me, Bearded Lucha Stu, joined as always by Stu Backer. Stu, how you doing this week?
I'm good. I'm tired, but that's my standard complaint. So I can't really actually complain. But otherwise, good to speak to you. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. So it's delightful to be back, and it's delightful to be back for a Blood Bowl Tavern special episode with upcoming elections for Team England. It's fantastic that we've been joined by some special guests. But Stu, do you want to set the context of our special episode as we're going? We are also broadcasting live on Twitch, apparently. We are going to try and monitor that chat as we go through this. But again, from a technical standpoint, we will be probably rolling double skulls for the whole thing, but we will try and keep an eye on that Twitch chat. Yeah. So Stu, over to you.
Cool. So some people will be aware, some may not be aware. There is an international Blood Bowl tournament called the Euro Bowl, which happens every year except for the year in which there's a World Cup. National teams put in teams of 8 players, and this is largely teams from Europe, but also Australia and Canada and America have played recently as well. And it's a rotating location. The team that finishes highest and wants to host the next one gets to do so. And so the next one is going to be in Poland in October 2026. And each national team has a captain, and there is an election ongoing. And the two gentlemen that you can see on the screen, if you're watching us, are the two candidates. So I will just introduce them. So we've got Dan, who is effectively in the middle of the screen. He's the incumbent captain. His first NAF event was the NAF Championships in 2014. He's now played 70 tournaments overall with a 62% win rate in the 2020 rule set. Definite preference for Lizardmen. I think he'll probably agree, with over 140 games played. He was selected for Team England in 2016 when they won the Euro Bowl. And he's also won 3 other team events, including Kent in 2024. And he was captain last month, we're not November now, when England finished 5th in the Euro Bowl, but also won the Euro Open, which is the 4-player event that goes alongside that. So welcome, Dan. Is there anything that I've forgot? Oh, and you also the driving force behind the tackle zone as well.
Yeah, the Tackle Zones was a website around for a while. Like many things, COVID kind of got to it, and it's just become a bit of a touring team now. But no, that was surprisingly comprehensive. You've done more research than
I was not working very much the other day, so yeah. And to the left of the screen is Liam, also known as Thulian. His first NAF event was 2019, and he's played 67 in total since then, so fairly prolific, especially when, as Sam mentions, there was COVID in between. He's got a overall win rate of 66% in the 2020 rule set. He was selected for Team England in 2024, and then in the Euro Open, and 2025 for the Euro Bowl. He's won 5 team events, including the Home Nations Open in 2024, Kent last year, Monkey Bowl, and I think probably what he mentioned is one of his best achievements, the Tillian Team Cup this year as well. And also the Scottish National this year as well. So, which will be pretty impressive. So welcome, Liam. And Liam's also one of the members of Tactics and Theatrics, who he won many of those events with as well. So welcome, Liam. Is there anything you want to add to that? Or do you want to tell us about
TNT? Also very comprehensive. Thank you.
No worries. As we're English, we don't like to talk about ourselves too much, so I thought I would do it for you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, much appreciated.
Cool. So yeah, welcome to you both. We're going to sort of try and alternate who answers each question first, as I mentioned, and Stu's going to do most of the question. I'm going to monitor the chat and interject with follow-up questions or anything of my own. But yeah, over to you, Stu.
Yeah, thanks very much. My dream of being the Blood Bowl Magnus Magnusson is the living the impossible dream. But I'll start with Liam. I suppose, obviously, heading into 2026, what would you say is your goal for the next year as a Blood Bowl coach?
For me personally,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, I guess first things first, the elephant in the room is the new edition, right? So I want to get to grips with that very, very quickly and try and figure everything out. But then also beyond that, I guess winning more events would be really great. Although you can't win them all. I've done like way above expectation this year. So yeah, I've got no illusions of continuing that next year, but if it happens, then great.
Awesome. And same to you, Dan. What's your goal as a coach personally for the next 12 months?
Yeah, so I only really had one goal last year, which was winning both Euro Bowl and the European. 50% successful, 50% unsuccessful. So yeah, the only goal for the coming year would be to win both.
Awesome. And then again, to build on sort of Liam's point as well, Dan. Obviously, everyone was very excited by pre-orders for season 3 going live yesterday, as when we're recording it. How's that going to impact your preparations heading into 2026?
Yeah, I think in many ways last year was a little bit of a practice for it because the volatility of the rule set meant that we did have to have more of a group structure rather than just individuals. I know in previous years it's been a bit more of an allocated basis when the meta's been settled. But I was really appreciative of having the whole squad last year. We had like a Christmas event that I put on so that we were able to sort of do quite a lot of practice. I played a lot of star teams. I played a Black Hawk with star team that may have not taken very much convincing from someone to let me run it because I thought it was quite good in the Christmas bashes. So it's going to be that, but times 10. I think we're all a little bit surprised by just how wide-ranging the changes are. We knew that some things like, some of the teams would change because of the box sets, but the additions of the skills and some of the extra rules. And, we've only had sort of maybe half or 3/4 of the picture by now. So the main thing about the preparation is that we're not going to know what people are good at in advance because everything is changing. So my selection process is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be looking sort of more on raw talent than specialists, which was very much the name of the game last year.
Yeah, and same again for him. So you mentioned sort of getting to grips with season 3. Is that going to be sort of for yourself sort of a fair bit of fumble, or just again getting out to as many tournaments as possible that's going to be under the new rule set?
Yeah, both, absolutely both. And also talking with people about it. I think sort of theory crafting is quite a strong aspect of learning a new rule set, being open to new ideas, because there's going to be a lot of new ideas floating around in this because it's very, very drastic change. So, the old ways are not necessarily the right ways anymore. So I think, yeah, just trying to be open and, forthcoming with any ideas that you might have to try and solve some things, because we're not realistically for England, we're not looking to play nice or play, ethical Blood Bowl. It's about winning, right? So you want to take the best rosters and the best players and go and win the thing. Rule set be damned. Yeah.
So with that said as well, then Liam, what do you think then is going to be the biggest challenge in 2026? Is it going to be that unknown, that not the inability to actually sort of scout your opponents and sort of the tried and tested veterans of sort of Blood Bowl 2020 rule set? Is it going to make it a lot harder to actually prepare for tournaments going forward?
Maybe. I hope not. I think people who are good at Blood Bowl and have been around the game a lot know how to approach a change in rule set and such a drastic one. So yeah, I'm hoping that the experience that we have in the team is going to carry us a long way in that regard.
Yeah. And Dan, what's your biggest challenge in 2026, this new rule set then? How are you going to start preparing for tournaments in this way with the new rule sets coming in, and what's going to challenge you the most?
Yeah, I think we need a little bit of a mindset change as a nation. We are maybe a bit more on the conservative side than others. We did quite a lot of espionage into the French and Danish teams and saw what they were taking on Fumble last year to try and generate some extra ideas. Those two nations especially tend to break the meta much faster than the others. And so really that's going to be working it out. So like last year, I deliberately was more aggressive in the open than I was in the bowl. And I think that if we try to play it safe this coming year, it's not going to work. I think we need to be far more front foot, far more aggressive and just take some gambles. So yeah, blending that with just the confidence of what the new rules were doing is going to be the hardest challenge, getting that right. I was really happy that we kind of basically solved the meta as much as we could within the volatility rule set last year. We took a lot of sort of rosters that were pretty well understood to be good. And so yeah, just hoping to repeat that.
Cool. And then looking at sort of those tournaments, and again, we're going to obviously split between sort of season 2, season 3 rules coming through for the next sort of few months as people settle out their tournaments. So Liam, from your standpoint, will the new rule set mean that you're going to expect coaches to be playing more tournaments in the build up to Poland itself rather than a traditional year to familiarize themselves with the new rule set? So obviously I think sort of some of the Team England managed only 5 or so tournaments a year. So even if they've been on the top of their game for a decade or so, they're not going to be used to this new rule set in comparison to someone who goes out and instantly plays 20 tournaments every weekend they're out on the road. Do you anticipate that there might be some of the household names of Team England and sort of English Blood Bowl missing out on squad selection? Stu mentioned previously in the conversation, someone like Gegster, who's been a fantastic coach with Dwarves. If that rule set significantly changed from his roster, would that require more time for a coach like that to have to adapt, assuming Dwarves were still worth taking under the new rule set?
It might do. I think there's a balance to be struck when playing a large volume of tournaments, because not every game you're going to play at a tournament is going to be of the kind of quality that you're going to see at a Euro Bowl. So it may not be very useful in that regard of like practice. What we can do though is play loads of games against each other online, and draw people in to that practice circle to do that, so we get more and more ideas from high quality coaches. So practicing that way, I think, is going to be the most important thing. Playing probably big events is going to be important. Playing in Europe, I think I would weight a lot higher. So going out playing in Lutece or Tillian or Bilbao or something, I think is probably the most important thing. If you can do that, not everyone can, but if you can, then excellent. Otherwise, I would see sort of, your general one-day UK tournament as a bit further down the priority list of things to do, throughout the year.
And it's the same again for Dan. Is there sort of similar view to Liam's, or is there anything else that you think sort of coaches may need to be getting ready for sort of selection? And again, do you believe there might be some big names that will miss out on 2026?
I mean, there's always the potential for big names to be missing out. A lot of it will depend on, how you feel at the time with how they've maybe adapted to the new rule set as much as anything else. I think Gegster is a really good example here because he plays a huge amount of online games. So even if he's not going to many tournaments, and the average person he's playing online is probably bigger than the average sort of one-dayer that Liam's mentioned. So that will be crucial, especially because there's going to be a lot of experimenting. I think if you go to tabletop tournaments, you may not want to experiment so much. You want to take kind of tried and tested, sort of, not protecting your win rate from a stat padding point of view, but, we want to go out there and win tournaments. And so the internal play, use of the full squad, like I put in last year is going to be, I think, far more important than just simply trying to go to as many tournaments as you can. But volume of games is going to be hugely important. One thing
that I wanted to pick up on is I think, Dan, you announced the 12 in January or February last year. Is that right? And obviously the new rule set's coming out middle of this month, so there's not a lot of time for people to play the new rule set. We assume that Fumble might be up to date within a week or two potentially, and obviously there'll be and obviously there'll be one or two tournaments that people will be playing in the new rule set, but it's obviously going to be December time, so probably people aren't playing as much. So what sort of experience of the new rule set would both of you be expecting before picking the 12?
Quite extensive. The level of activity and the level of effort that people are putting in, I think, is essential. I think this year I'm going to select the 12 a bit later than last year if I'm selected to be captain. But the 8-4 split will be done immediately rather than sort of waiting until after home nations. It's also worth bearing in mind that the Euro Bowl rule set doesn't need to be published until 6 months prior to the event as well. So it may not be until March this year that we even see what tiering system that they're actually going with. And so that might have a little bit of an effect as well in terms of selection. So I've already laid out my calendar. Assuming that the Euro Bowl rule set comes out sort of mid-March, then I would be selecting the 12 either towards the end of March or early April. And then it's going to just be even more practice after that.
Yeah. And Liam, did you have any thoughts on sort of the timescale and experience of season 3 that you'd expect people to have?
Yeah, so I had a bit of an interaction with Krista the other day. I think Fumble might take a bit longer, sadly. I don't know how long, obviously they're doing the best, but that might have an impact on our ability to do online practice. So maybe things will take a bit longer, but like Dan said, they don't need to publish until later in the year or after the new year. So it's tough to say, but then we'll do our best, right? We'll get maybe IRL meetups done or something if we if we have the time over Christmas. But it's going to be a lot of theory crafting in the beginning, I think.
Okay. Cool.
And on that subject, obviously, as you said, they've got 6 months before the event to actually publish the rule set. Dan, I'll go to you first. What do you expect? And again, I know this could be how long's a piece of string with new edition being sort of pre-ordered. What do you expect the Polish rule set to be like in comparison to prior tournaments?
Yeah, this is a bit of a hot topic amongst some discussion, and obviously one of my roles last year was being the England representative within the Euro Bowl Captains Committee. So for the people that don't know, I've sort of spent the last 12 months discussing with the captains of the other nations around what the future of Euro Bowl should look like, and that can be anything from rule set to should Europen be its own separate event in a different country at a different time. So as you imagine, there's a fair amount of politics involved going there, sort of trying to form networks of other captains to try and push in that direction. What we have seen is that there's been a general move towards what I would say is less English rule sets, so more volatility. So even if the meta is fully understood, I do expect there to be some craziness in it. I don't know if you guys have seen a kind of a prior view of what the Polish rule set would look like, albeit under sort of season 2 conditions rather than season 3, and it's even more expansive than the Hungarian one. So we're expecting there to be lots of little nuances that we have to work out, and then you just have to hope that you run the luck on the day.
How about yourself, Liam? Do you think there are going to be any even more out there surprises than usual?
Oh my word! Yeah, if because I've seen a draft as well. Yeah, it's bonkers. But
you both still won the job.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know why.
We were talking about this earlier.
Yeah, must be something wrong, right? But yeah, you have to just adapt to these things. I think the draft I've seen is an absolute travesty from an inclusivity perspective, because it's so complicated. Like, you look at it and it's just this like wall of text of skill packs, and we can decipher that. Your kind of everyday team that just wants to go have fun at Euro Bowl, they're going to have a hell of a time trying to come up with something that I don't know. Anyway,
is it even more confusing than the Athens one was, because all the packs initially was okay,
big time, yeah. So the way I've described it and heard it described is there's more skill packs than there are teams in the game. That's the kind of level we're at.
Okay.
There's that many options to choose from. So and then add the shake-up of the new rule set on top of that. I think is it's going to be a wild time, but we'll do what we can. We'll figure it out.
Do you think, as an aside to this, and sort of, and this is more to sort of all three of you actually, because you've obviously all played international tournaments and sort of bigger tournaments than I have. Do you think that these sort of European and Euro Ball rules and the World Cup rules are really a barrier for entry for those who actually want to get more serious in competitive Blood Bowl? Do you think that it's a benefit to have this level of technicality in these bigger tournaments, because then it means you're going to have top-tiered opposition to someone who's not going to go 0-6 for like a weekend? Or do you think it's prohibitive to getting people who are starting to really grasp the game and they might be a bit nervous to take that plunge to go and play in these sort of bigger tournaments?
Who's best?
I'll go.
I'll go Stu first.
Yeah.
I'll go Stu first.
Stu first. Yeah,
oh, wait, thanks. I'm not interviewing for the job. I think personally, like, I got confused by the Athens one, for example, and I wasn't even going, so I didn't really even need to come up with a team or anything. But it was overly complex, and as both Liam and Dan were saying, like, there's been a lot of volatility. I expect more, and it's not conducive to high competitive Blood Bowl, but it's more conducive to someone who just wants to go and have a laugh and take goblins and blow everything up, right? So it's I think it's difficult to please both groups, but there is a middle ground that is often missed.
Yeah, because the Euro Bowl rule set is played widely across the year, across many countries, right? Because I don't know why that is, but people want to practice throughout the year and whatever. So yeah, I think the ramifications of that are sufficient enough to want to have a simpler rule set that many more people can understand. The fact that you're saying that, Stu, is an indictment on the rule set itself, right? Because you're an experienced player, so you should be able to look at a rule set and go, right, I understand it. I'm going to pick this team because I think it's the best. So
yeah, and it's even more complex when you add in the squad element of it. Like I've forgotten what Hungary was, to be honest, but I just remember the skill packs, and you had to work out within your team who was taking which skill packs. It's just a lot more layers than just going, okay, I like Wood Elves, I'm going to play Wood Elves. Thanks. What can I take?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest areas of debates amongst the Euro Bowl captains. What is, should the Euro Bowl be sacrosanct as a competitive tournament? And many people feel the answer is no, which is obviously disappointing for those of us that feel it should be, because as the rule sets get more volatile, it does tend to hurt that competitive play. The complexity of the rules is not necessarily a barrier, because you'd expect people to sort of be able to work it out at that highest level and have a lot more time and discussion dedicated to it. I'm less concerned about the World Cup, I think, because that is supposed to be a bit more of a sort of a worldwide party. and the top teams will just find ways to break sort of whatever's coming along. But certainly for Eurobowl, I do feel we're going in the wrong direction. Yeah, I mean, a good example was, again, as we mentioned here before, Gexter on Dwarves. We took Dwarves with 3 mighty blow, and it's pretty simple what the game plan is, right? In the first 4 games, he made 2 casualties. So our elves were outscoring him on casualties. He managed to kind of rally up to 7 by the end of the tournament, but it's hard going. So you take 3 mighty blow and you're getting less than average casualty. What can you do? You're a passenger as a player, and we felt that so many of the games were shaking out that way, and we wanted it to be in the players' hands. We want to make the decisions that they make the importance, with manipulation of the dice in terms of the odds that you will need to roll, being sort of a bit lower down.
Cool. Stu, is there anything in the Twitch chat at the moment, or are we okay?
Yeah, so there's a point that Dimmy made, actually. He said that obviously there's going to be potentially a lot of new players at the Open next year, and so surely like less complexity in the rule set for learning where they're effectively learning a new edition, might be a sensible option. But as they mentioned, sensible isn't always on the forefront of the rules designers' minds.
Exactly. Who doesn't want to induce a giant? That's what we all want in our lives. We want a giant.
That's all about Doom Dives now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, Giant's not in the rule book, as our Snotling coach has pointed out, but it might be in a supplement.
Come on,
We'll
Death
see.
Note. Haven't got that beautiful giant painted up to not be able to bring him out to annoy people in league play. So obviously, as Stu mentioned, as English coaches, people aren't very good at bigging themselves up for sort of where they've been successful at, and we do tend to dwell on some of the negatives of things. And some in the community would obviously flag that the loss to Spain was probably one of the bigger lowlights of the season. Liam, with hindsight, what would you have made? What would have you made any changes in preparation for leading up to that defeat? What would have you changed to potentially flip the result the other way?
Do you mean from a personal level, or if I, theoretically was captain last year?
Let's go for both. You personally, and also from a captain's perspective, what would have you done differently to hopefully have a different result in that Spanish match
against Spain? It was tough for me personally. Like, I was playing against vampires, and that's a game that a matchup that is difficult at the best of times for anyone. My opponent was pretty good and did the right things, and I didn't get the win, even though I certainly tried. So sometimes it just goes against you, but then when 7 boards go against you at the same time, it's really, really tough, right? There's not loads you can do about it. But maybe that was a symptom of the rule set, right? Spain really, really lent into the removal kind of variance thing, and we didn't as much. So, but then Spain didn't win the Eurobowl, so there's maybe not too many conclusions to be drawn from that choice. As a team, I don't know. I think the only thing that I was disappointed about last year that kind of came about for a completely different reason was that we had Greenskin Phil lined up as the kind of the coach for the team, and I thought he would have done a really, really great job at that. But we made the decision to, after unfortunate circumstances, great for him, got to play in the European, won it, which is absolutely fantastic. But there's something I was really looking forward to, was having him and his energy there to kind of boost the team a little bit. And while Dan took that mantle up, I'm sure you would agree, Dan, that Chris brings something in that regard that is difficult to replicate. I certainly couldn't.
Yeah, I think Chris definitely brings a lot of energy. I think I read a game much better than he does. So I had a system in place where And like my personal preparation is understanding all the teams, all the rosters that were available, so that when I knew that the matches up were there, I just needed like a little kind of just double check. Fortunately, we'd moved to tour play, which made that double checking a little bit easier. And we used WhatsApp at Home Nations, but I decided not to use it for Eurobowl, partly because it was a bit frowned on to use phones in the event. But I found that I didn't need it if I was able to spend just a couple of sort of seconds looking at a board. I mean, once you check the casualty box, the rerolls, the turn counter, and just gave, you know, a fairly reasonable glance at the position, you can kind of read the board state pretty well. I was giving everyone a score out of 5 based on what I thought the end result was. So the only thing I really needed to make sure I caught in time was who was kicking and who was receiving. So once that was in place, I could sort of let the guys play the first couple of turns. And then my system was on turn 3, I would then do a board walk just to sort of, okay, what's happened early on in the game. I've written quite a lot about this in one of the Q&A answers, but against Spain, it was, I mean, Core had lost 6, like dead in the casualty box, 6 Amazons by turn 3. Joe had lost both of his mummies. Tree was having a random lineman fouled by Borak on turn 3 with 1 assist, who then didn't get sent off until turn 14. They heavily lent into the casualty removal aspect. I think Liam, you were 1 or 2 down by that point. Gegster was 2 down at that point. Like everyone was casualties down. So yeah, it's obviously something that I've reflected on a lot. I don't think I really would have changed anything. I did have a little bit of a think about maybe some changes after Home Nations, you know, Chaos Chosen we'll talk about a little bit, but if you're losing a lot of casualties across the board, that's not helping you. The way that I set the team up was to be casualty resistant, you know, persuading Phil Purple Goo to move off of humans and onto Elven Union later on, because you know, you can still do things when there's only 3 people on the pitch. So yeah, I think it was just one of those. I think the round probably would have ended 1-2-5 if I'd left it alone, but a couple of people in particular, I kind of gave the tap on the shoulder and said, look, you need to push here because this round is looking bad already. I didn't want to go for tiebreakers at that point. I wanted to try and salvage the round. And obviously they got into a bit of trouble because of that, and it escalated away. So I don't think I would have changed anything, even with the benefit of hindsight. It's just sad that you get, I mean, it was all over by turn 3,
yeah.
And that's always a very disheartening moment for me personally.
Yeah, and the final result was not really reflective of anything, right? Being 1-0-7 doesn't mean any different than just losing the round, but people see that and go, oh my god, when really, like, it doesn't mean much. So
yeah, I mean, it's good to get like you know, an insider's perspective, because those of us watching on tour play were just like, oh, England just got wiped.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's obviously nuance behind it.
Yeah, so I mean, another example, Joe nearly got a draw as well. You know, he nearly salvaged something. There were several sort of nearly moments. But
yeah, I nearly got a draw. I nearly got a draw in the end after being 2-0 down. Like, and my opponent ran the clock out basically to get the win. So that was really fun.
Yeah, as in the round timed out.
Yep.
Installing.
Yep. Made the mistake of not using the clock from the beginning, and then I did from then on. So
okay.
My trouble is, maybe this is what I would change actually. I maybe am too nice to my opponents, and I think I play quick enough, so therefore we'll get this game done.
Yeah.
And realistically, it should be sit down, get the clock out, go from there. You know.
Yeah.
That was a change that I made this year, based on an unfortunate event that happened last year with you know, a single dice roll needing to be made and the referee saying that it wasn't allowed. I moved everyone to basically saying, unless you're against using a clock, please use a clock. Because yeah, that's one of the other things that I checked as I went, just kind of what the clock state was. Because we do have some quick players, in the team, and you kind of, you know, as Liam said, you're not here to play the nicest Blood Bowl. You're here to play the round. So if you can use the clock against people, 100%, I was all for that. So that was another big change this year. We've never had sort of a captain's orders of using clocks. Yeah, I'm glad the guys took to it.
Cool. And then I think, because obviously legacy is a word that's thrown around quite a bit, and it seems a bit grandiose, but I think the how successful Team England is as sort of a Blood Bowl institution, I'd say, what would you want to leave behind as your legacy for Blood Bowl and for Team England as a whole? Dan, I'll go to you first on that one.
Yeah, I want to put in a lot more of that infrastructure to make us successful going forwards. England were really lucky in the last decade to have a really dedicated group of very, very good players who were just a cut above everyone else. I think since COVID, especially, there's just been a lot more good players across Europe and across the world who have started to play. And that meant that the gap between us and everyone else, in combination with some of our good players no longer playing, means that we really need to foster the talent of the next generation coming through. And it's kind of easy sort of, 10, 15 years ago when these guys are sort of doing it for the first time, because no one's really looking at it. There have been England captaincy votes that have been won before with like 11 votes to 8. That's sort of how invested everyone was in the process. Whereas last year there was like 130 votes in total. So that shows how keen everyone is to be involved. And what I want to do is harness that energy and that passion, and try to be as inclusive as possible, bring as many people as we can into the process, whether that's the actual playing of the game or whether that's streaming coverage, whether that's artwork, or however people want to interact. Because I think once you've got that foundation in place, the people who really are going to make a difference in the future are going to come through. They're not going to feel that they need to be invited. They're going to want to push for it. And that's how we find the next generation of talent. So, I've already made strides with the picks this year to try and identify some of those people. If I'm successful at this election, I'll be doing exactly the same and pushing to find that new talent next year. But yeah, in terms of leaving a legacy, that's really what I want.
Oh, same thing for you, Liam. How would you want your legacy to be seen if successful at the next sort of election campaign?
Yeah, the big thing for me is very similar to what Dan's goal is, of expanding the community, trying to find new talent. Also, maybe trying to change people's perceptions a little bit of what it means to be, quote unquote, good enough to apply for Team England. I've spoken with people in the past. Other people have told me they've spoken with people in the past that have said to them or me, like, I would like to apply, I'm interested, but I just don't think I'm good enough. And yeah, I'd really like to change that, because I know some of those people, I think they are good enough. And I think the only way you're going to get better is by pushing yourself, trying to do something like this, and learning and growing, right? You won't get in straight away. I didn't get in straight away, right, to the bowl team. So it's a process, and you have to apply yourself and go through it, put yourself out there a little bit, expose yourself a little bit, I think. And just trying to, from my perspective, that would be trying to give people a bit of the courage to think, oh, well, okay, I will go for this, because I really love the game and I love the community, and I want to get better and do my best. So I think if I can recruit people that were on the fence earlier, then I'd be extremely happy with that. On the flip side, I definitely do want to win Eurobowl. So that would be the main goal for me.
One question that someone's just asked on the stream is what sort of results would you be expecting coaches to get in Mulligans, Welsh Nationals, NAF Championships, etc., to be looking at selection? I guess it's a difficult one to answer. Like, you could say, okay, well, I expect them to win 4 at least. But it's, you know, they might be taking a team for the first time, or under the new rule set, a team that did what used to work or something like that.
Yeah,
So,
I think winning those big events is a really great achievement. You know, Gexter won NFC this year. I won Mulligans. It's a great achievement, and it shows sort of a consistency of play. However, winning a big event like that with so many people and 6 games, it requires an element of luck, right? You can't just rock up and expect to win NFC. You can just go and do your best. And the people that consistently do that over the course of a year or 2 or 5 years, they're the players that are A, more likely to win the big events, and B, more likely to just be the best, right? Be the ones you want to pick for your team.
Yeah, consistency is really important, and one of the major stats, as our resident statistician here will know, in terms of a lot of help that you provided with those numbers last year, is how do you perform against other top players, and in particular for team events, what's your ability to not lose a game? If you're going super volatile and, you know, all the stars align and you go 6-0, well, that's fine for one event. It's nice to have that title. But if the next 3 events it's the other way around, then what does that really tell us? So your ability to lock down a hard game, it's always really difficult to talk about raw stats, because what I tend to find is the better players don't have the best stats, because the better players tend to go to harder events and challenge themselves against the top opponents. And naturally, you're going to, you know, even if you're not losing, you're going to get draws. And so, you know, if you got something like a 75, 80% win rate, it's probably because you're not going to tough tournaments. And so your win rate can almost be too high. And if you're finding yourself doing really well in a lot of tournaments, try to find harder tournaments to go to. That's the way to really improve. So yeah, results like those, you should be expecting to do something like 3-2-1 as an absolute minimum, 4-1-1. Like, everyone's going to lose the odd game here and there, but if you feel that you can go to the big events and regularly do a 4-1-1, then you should absolutely be applying for England. No doubt. Don't not apply because you're not getting forward. but
exactly. I mean, I was in the squad, the wider squad this year of 24, and there's, you know, I've occasionally done that sort of result at the larger events, but not regularly. But one of the things that you brought in this year, Dan, was widening the squad, and just, you know, players who aren't going to make the 12 got interactions with those who would, and got to play games against, and got to learn, got to chat. So yeah, like I would definitely recommend anyone apply who has any interest of actually playing at any point in the future, regardless of whether it's next year or not.
Yeah, a lot of it is the mindset. If you're sat there just blaming dice, then don't apply, because that's not the mindset that you need for this event. This mindset is, everything has gone wrong for me, but I'm still going to get a draw out of this game. If you've got that mindset, absolutely apply, because we can help you get better. It's very hard to change your mindset.
Yeah, and also, like, being reflective about your, you know, you might have lost a game and you might have thought you got super duper unlucky, but something that's really, really helped me over my kind of last year or two is, you know, I've lost a game, I'll take a minute to just be whatever about it, and then my immediate first thought is, could I have done anything better in that game? Like, even if it wouldn't have affected the outcome, like, oh, maybe I made a mistake at this point or whatever. If you can reflect like that, then that is far more constructive than just being like, oh, it was one of those games.
Yeah,
you know, move on. Yeah, don't like beat yourself up about it, about making a mistake, but just be aware of it, and you know, that will help you grow going forwards.
sure.
So for those coaches who are sort of looking to expand into sort of that mindset as well, as you said, it's more than results. It's about being coachable. It's about being in that team as well. Do you have any sort of recommendations for sort of those who are thinking of applying for Team England over this time round or in the next few sort of cycles? and sort of how they can go back and sort of review the work that they've done in those games. Because obviously I've played people who write down literally every move they make. And I think it's fantastic, but I don't have the headspace for that. And as you said, I tend to get to the end of the game and go, oh, good, I took goblins. And that's normally what goes horribly wrong for me. What sort of advice would you give to those sort of coaches as they're looking to take that next step up then to having that sort of retro of their games where they think they've been diced, but it may have actually been something they did in their overall gameplay?
Yeah, so for me, the principle I use, I call trace back. So look at the point of failure, look at the individual moment where you lost the game, and it could be a dice roll, it could be a 3-up dice roll or something like that with reroll. You know, it could have been something that was massively unlucky, and ask yourself why you needed to be in that position, and then trace it back to the decision you made that led you to go into that position. And that could be tactical. It could be, I put this guy here instead of here. It could be strategic, that I've decided to push on turn 3 and that was too early. I had to stall for an extra turn and then I got crunched. Maybe I should have gone on turn 4. Maybe I didn't shake people left and right quickly enough. So that's the fundamental thing. Find out where you identify the point at which you lost the game, then trace it back to the earliest point where you made a decision that would have avoided that situation. And then once you've worked out what the better decision would be, chances are those situations stop happening. And if you do that enough times, you'll start to see a pattern in your play. It will improve you.
Yeah, I agree with that system. I think it's really good. I use it myself. I'd also recommend just trying to talk to your opponent after a game. People are generally quite nice. And if you think your opponent was massively better than you, or you sat down against Purple Goo and was like, oh my God, I'm going to get destroyed. And then you do get destroyed. Just try and ask them questions afterwards. The game is fresh in their mind, fresh in your mind. That's the best time to be like, well, could I have done better? And the vast majority of people will be absolutely fine to talk about a game immediately after.
Yeah, Greenskin Phil is genuinely the best for that. Because a couple of years ago, I played him at Thrudbope in the 7s, and then opening day outdoors in the rain, and it was again really, really good feedback that they gave. Obviously, Stu, you mentioned sort of the expanded sort of 24 earlier on. Liam, how do you feel that these additional setup around the team has helped Team England? And do you think these positions could become sort of more formalized and perhaps even sort of elected positions in the future? And on top of that, does that mean from a Team England committee standpoint, sort of more committee members should have specific responsibilities and therefore sort of spreading the load amongst the committee a bit more?
I think, sorry, just to add to that, I think we're also thinking about Phil's impact and Meth spores and that sort of thing as well in that question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I think those two in particular have done a fantastic job this year. I'd love for that sort of thing to continue. I think Team England is in a position to be built as sort of a brand, not, a saleable brand or anything, but just like a concept within the Blood Bowl community as this sort of entity that is, very professional in the way it works. And I think that'd be constructive for not only the players, but the design of a team, in drawing in new talent. I think that's all part of the same process. Whether those people get elected or not, I'm not sure. Yeah, we could see about some stuff like that. It probably comes down to a committee decision. Like, I'm not experienced in teaming and committee stuff, so I couldn't really say. Dan might be able to help out with that, but yeah, I think what those two and others in that sort of position have done this year has been fantastic, and I'd love to see more of it going forwards.
Yeah, I put a video on YouTube about 3 days ago, I think, setting out my vision for 2026. Apologies to everyone. It's like 35 minutes of me just sort of yabbering on about what I see going forwards. And one of those is to try and get the committee more involved in some specific bigger things that I think we should be doing. But the key word, the word that I sort of repeat about 83,000 times in that video is decentralization, because if we want it to be what we want it to be, and we just try and put it all on the shoulders of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, it's just going to all fall apart. It's just too much to do as a hobby throughout the year, bearing in mind that some of those committee members will also be trying to sort of play or be around the Team England setup as well. And so what we need to do is we need to create an invitational platform that people want to get involved. So a good example would be to not try and have too much control over, let's say, like a Team England Twitch stream in terms of like spreading the games, but to find guys like you and say, would you like to commentate on a match? Get you and all the other good commentators that we've got together into a group and have that group try to largely run itself, but with the oversight of one of the committee members. I don't think that needs to be a specific elected position. I think sometimes a change is as good as a rest. So I see the sort of the committee as a whole. You know, we might divvy up the job, but after 6 months, people might be a bit tired and want to sort of switch around to something else, just to keep everything fresh. So we cannot do this as just captains. We cannot do this as just a small committee, even with a core of really good people like Chris and Maria supporting us. And you know, I thank them so many times for their efforts last year, and I'm not going to stop now. They were absolutely superb throughout the whole year in helping Team England and me personally. But if the community really wants this, they have to step up. We need to invite them to step up. But once they have done, they need to sort of take charge of things themselves a bit.
Awesome. So before we head on to some sort of individually tailored questions, Stu, is there anything else in the Twitch stream, or are we okay to carry on?
We're okay to carry on at the minute, Steve.
Awesome.
Go for it.
Cool. So Dan, obviously, as a current captain, what change have you brought in that you felt has had the biggest impact on Team England as a whole?
I think that it was the bringing in of the squad at the beginning allowed us to have a much wider variety of conversation, which I think was really key to working out the rule set and to understanding what was going on together. I think that, you know, I wasn't part of the Team England setup in previous years, but from the feedback that I've had from certain people, the conversations were not quite as free-flowing. There was often some confusion or disorganization around who should be taking what. People were put onto teams very late. And the end result is, I think, that we didn't really go into those events prepared. With the singular exception of me persuading Phil to move on to Elven Union after the home nations, I think everyone else was pretty much set on their team back in February and March, and so that allowed them to get in a lot of repetitions with their work. It meant that when we came to the practice event, we were able to formulate our thinking around specific things. And then, you know, the guys were also arranging lots of their own practices individually as well. So I think having that really good conversation at the beginning allowed everyone to be much faster in terms of cementing. And that just meant we were really prepared in team selection going into the event.
Awesome. And Liam, as you mentioned earlier, it took a few times sort of out of our application to sort of make it into the Team England setup. And I think that was 2024 that you came into the setup, the Open, and then 2025 for the Bowl. So you've obviously got the experience of transitioning from being outside the squads to being in both levels of it. What was your experience of that? And how would you be able to help other new caps to navigate that process from the outside to the inside as well?
Yeah, so the only reason I applied for Team England in the first place was because Dan mentioned that maybe I should do it. So I did. And I think having more of that kind of person in the community is necessary for us to grow this, right? So yeah, I'd be looking to recruit volunteers to take up that role around the country, different regions. You know, we've got these tournament series around the country. There's no reason why every tournament series area couldn't have a representative for Team England and be, scouting and recruiting and promoting and, helping people realize their potential a bit more. And yeah, I think, my experience was from transitioning from one to the other was really good. I possibly think maybe I should have been on the ball in the first year, but that's by the by. That was someone else's decision. But yeah, it's been a great experience, and I think I can definitely help other people navigate it as well by just making them feel included and as part of the squad from the beginning. Yeah, people need to realize that they've been picked for a reason, right? So just communication with them, tell them that they're good enough, and keep them pointed in the right direction. Yeah.
Awesome. And Dan, so how much time does it actually take up being captain of Team England, and how did it compare to your anticipations before sort of being nominated in as captain? Is it what you expected? Is it a hell of a lot more? Where are you at on that time expectation banner at the moment?
Yeah, it was definitely more than I expected. I think I underestimated how much time the Euro Bowl captains thing would take up, especially early on. That's the one that kind of really surprised me. In terms of total time, it's kind of pretty much as I expected, and I think because I was so keen to do things like create the Discord channel so that we had a shared space, and to sort of open up to a squad, and it was very much the driving force behind things like the virtual Grand Tour. I knew that I was going to push people harder than they'd ever been pushed before, and therefore that was going to come with a lot of time for them and as well as me. So that level of it didn't surprise me at all, partly because I was sort of the person that was like pushing for it to happen. So, if that called me out, that would be pretty bad. I think one of the areas of timings that did catch me out was, and I don't know whether this was because I'd opened it up to a wider thing, so people felt I was more approachable. There was a lot of negativity to deal with, a lot of people complaining about certain picks that I'd made, or saying that we were doing the wrong thing, or this, that, and the other. You know what I mean? It's I had people coming up to me during a tournament to say that I shouldn't pick someone that they had just played and things like that. And I'm like, why did you think this is a conversation I'm going to have with you, sort of thing? I'm very happy to take feedback, but there was a level of negativity that was pretty much constant throughout the year. Certain things, tiny things would happen, and then a lot of people would have a conversation about it. Obviously, some big things happened last year as well that we had to deal with. There was probably less Discord drama, a lot less Discord drama. Again, Discord was one of the other examples. A lot of people at the beginning, about 10 people at the beginning, said that Discord will be the biggest mistake I ever made, because it would just descend into politics and drama almost immediately, and we'd have to close it down. We had very, very few incidences for a community of our size. So overall, it was a little bit more than I was expecting, but only in an area that, you kind of have to just get thick-skinned and sort of, be nice to people. But at the same time, I'm not really listening to opinion here.
Yeah. There's a question just come up from Hexbowen, actually. I guess probably more to Liam, about how much time does being a player take up, and what sort of commitments would you expect from someone who gets into the 12?
Yeah. Difficult to say how much time I've spent playing over the last year. Probably more than is healthy for, things. But yeah, I mean, you have to be in the game, right? It has to be a big part of your life. You need to be looking at attending tournaments and things. And, I get it's not for everyone, right? And that's absolutely fine. I don't want to put anyone under the impression that you need to be unhealthily related to Blood Bowl. It should be absolutely a healthy part of your life as a hobby. But Yeah, I think it shows when someone's keen. They'll be in various groups, communities, talking about the game all the time, being involved in discussions, and that almost is as important as going out and playing, because you stay involved, your mind stays in the game, thinking about things all the time. So yeah, and that's certainly something I've done, maybe even too much from a personal perspective over the last year, but it is what it is.
Would you
Yeah.
say that's more than you would have done had you not been selected?
I mean, there's some stuff like the Grand Tour. I might have played one round for Tactics and Theatrics instead of all the rounds for England. So maybe a bits here and there, home nations and that, but yeah, bits here and there that I wouldn't have done. But I think I'm pretty into the game, so I would have played a lot.
Fair enough.
I think the biggest change was maybe the training day, where historically people have just sort of turned up to one person's house and just played games against each other. And I was quite keen for it to be more of a training session where we had a lot more conversation. So persuading a dozen people to travel to Nottingham for a Blood Bowl weekend in which they don't play Blood Bowl was obviously, I felt quite nervous about making it a success. So yeah, there is definitely some more commitment that you need as a 12, because that is your focus for the year. It's always hard to sort of put it into terms of number of hours, but if you're going more than 2 weeks without thinking about the Euro Bowl that's happening at the end of the year, then that's not the right place to be. So it can be psychologically maybe more than hours, quite dominating. So yeah, it does take a significant amount of extra time.
Cool. Thanks, Beth. That's you, Shu.
Cool. Thank you very much. And Liam, so let's say we hit the election day, you are successfully elected in as Team England captain. What would be your day one action as a Team England captain?
Wow, good question. I mean, I've already announced this, but I would announce it again. I'm taking on Greenskin Phil as full-time coach, non-playing coach for the year. Yeah, that would be the main thing, I think.
Cool.
Awesome. And Dan, you've been a non-playing coach in 2025 as well. Do you expect that to be the same in 2026? And if not, what would be different? And would you feel the need to justify your spot to anyone who missed out if you were going to be a playing captain in 2026?
I think I'm absolutely good enough to play for England. I've already won the Euro Bowl once, but I think it's absolutely the right decision to be a non-playing captain. I think having someone at that Euro Bowl level skill that is able to read and see the games and make those decisions much quicker and much sharper without having to refer to other people is a big advantage. There were a number of snap decisions that I had to make that led to wins. One of which was not quite needed to save a round, but at the time I thought it was needed to save a round. But then, fortunately, Thulian's opponent ran out of clock time, so you're going to win it anyway, so it was all fine. But you never know with the dice, do you? Always a double one on the horizon. But yeah, fortunately, this guy clocked out, so Liam just had to walk it home. But yeah, in that round, Food unexpectedly lost. And literally at that moment, I sort of tapped Mark on the shoulder and said, I know I've told you to stall for the draw here because that's all I thought we needed, but now he's lost, you need to win. So put it in. And it just activated his gutter runner with the ball at that point. So if I got to him 5 seconds later, he would have only had 2 turns to turn it over rather than 3, which he needed to get the score. So I think it is hugely important to have someone of that level of experience and skill to be making those decisions. And have that system put in place with that experience of team tournaments.
So obviously with that, obviously you've got some sort of good wins there, as you've said, sort of from a tactical sort of success side of things. What would you say, Dan, has been your biggest mistake made in 2025?
Yeah, this one's easy. I picked the 8-4 split far too late. I thought I was being clever by trying to collect as much information as possible before doing so. which led to us saying things like, a couple more rounds of the VGT against the harder opponents, maybe reveal something. Home nations, let's wait until after that. And it ended up just dragging on too long. So, and I think that unsettled the team a little bit. It certainly sort of added to a little bit of the burnout. That's why I wanted the summer to sort of rest. Everyone was kind of prepared by that point. I just wanted to sort of have a bit of downtime before we went into the main event. I didn't want a repeat of some of the things we heard last year where people putting maybe a bit too much pressure on themselves. So yeah, that's the real lesson learned is pick the 8-4 split much earlier, allow people to prepare in advance.
Awesome. And Lynn, you've played under 2 different captains for Team England. Are there any elements of their leadership styles that you've learned from them that you'd use if elected, or are you going to basically be sort of your own style, or an amalgamation of sort of those you've played under previously?
Yeah, so I think from a sort of an ethos perspective, both Cor and Dan have been quite similar in their ideas of the direction that they want the team to go, and I think I am too. So I think I want to keep that side of things. In terms of like competitiveness from a game playing standpoint, maybe I'm a little bit different, but it's tough to say without actually having done it as to what kind of, how aggressive or conservative I'll be. A lot of it depends on rules changes and things. So yeah, it's very tough to commit to a particular play style or whatever you want to call it going into the next year. But I definitely think I've got the ability to solve the meta or whatever you want to call it, bring the right players into the right teams, pick the right team. So yeah, I feel a bit unfair in these questions that Dan is answering things that
and then yours is all theoretical.
And I'm just like, theoretical stuff. But yeah, that's the short of it, really. So yeah.
No problem. So I think that's that was sort of all the questions that we'd prepared before.
Oh, that's all right, Stu. I've got 2 other fun questions to finish with. It's been very serious on sort of leadership styles and whatnot. So one that I've raised to Stu previously: will either of you, if elected or re-elected, commit to physical England caps for your players to have, similar to what you have in football or cricket? Will we ever see a physical Blood Bowl England cap for first-time call-ups?
Yeah, so again, this was something which didn't go as well as I wanted to last year. I wanted more. I wanted things like the shirts and other merchandise to be done a bit earlier. We, as a group, we decided to pursue this direction of sort of trying to go for some sponsorship. A sponsorship deal was on the table, which I thought was very generous from the outpost. So I was like, let's go get it. The person in charge of negotiation decided that they could get a better deal with someone else, but that fell through. And then by that time, the original deal was off the table. So I had to sort of take over the production of the shirts, and he didn't leave buying for other things. Like in the past, we've had hoodies and things like that as well, which was maybe not quite needed for Budapest, but certainly some places. So yeah, that's definitely a lesson learned. And so if I'm re-elected, the main thing different I'm going to do this year is have a community shirt design competition. So again, talking about different ways from the whole of the community to engage. There are lots of people who really love the artistic side, of the hobby. Let's find a way to get them involved. So yeah, if someone from the community draws up a nice hat, why not?
We have had a comment from Jock that apparently they're very expensive, and he's already looked at it for Scotland. So maybe we should commit to that expense just to one up them.
Jock's got very expensive taste, though, hasn't he? So.
He does.
And then the final one, obviously heading into the Euros in Poland next year. Who do you think is the biggest sleeping giant? Who could provide the biggest upset in next year's tournament, considering we've got rule changes, a very volatile rule set potentially on sort of on the back of a bit of paper at the moment. Liam, I'll go to you first. Who do you think could be sort of a sleeping giant, or someone who's a nation that's going to pull out and be a big surprise in 2026?
Yeah, interesting one. Interesting. There was some teams this year that did quite well, didn't they? The Dutch did well early on. I don't know much about them, but yeah, maybe them. Who else? Hey, maybe Wales, right? They did well this year. Maybe they'll.
Boo.
I have a soft spot for Team Wales because I have some Welsh heritage, so I'm kind of a little bit biased in that. But yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Dan? Any sleeping giants or anyone that you're expecting to potentially be a surprise challenger next year?
I think Finland are getting better and better. They were there or thereabouts this year as well. It's always hard to know when you talk about sleeping giants, kind of, because I think Denmark are going to do really well, because I think, as I said, they break rule sets much quicker than anyone else, but you can't exactly call them a sleeping giant because they're one of the best teams. They won it a couple of years ago. So
even after we stole their best player.
Yeah, well, it should win some more games. I'd say, yeah, of the people that are probably sort of not one of the traditional big Euro Bowl teams, I think Finland is an emerging team. I think they're going to do well.
It's Scandinavians, isn't it? They're all good in Scandinavia.
Yeah,
it seems.
Yeah.
So.
But we have had another question come up. Actually, it's do you have a strategy for getting the players in the 12 to share lessons on the new learnings on the new meta and the new season?
Yeah, so importantly, just the continuation of the squad 24. I know I've said 24. If there are more than 24 good people, and I really hope there is, it can be a bigger group than that. It's just, a bit of branding. One of the big things we're going to do this year, if I'm re-elected, and probably if I'm not re-elected, it's not the most revolutionary of ideas, is just creating a playbook that will have the squad 24 in charge of making it, but will be shared with the rest of the English community so that we can share all of these learnings. So yeah, that's the main strategy, is once the applications have come in, get that group together again, do the Xmas bash like we did last year, and then start to put all of our learnings from the new rule set together. Lots of good people who are sort of very creative and inventive in these things, to just get everyone to contribute into it, and then see what's best and see if we can start to break the meta.
How about you, Liam? And like, what sort of tactics, what sort of, how do tactics and theatrics share learnings as well? Are you going to implement that for England?
Yeah, it's difficult to translate that kind of thing. We're a very sort of tight-knit group. We talk about the game all the time on WhatsApp groups. But a similar thing could be done on Discord. You can always be sharing ideas, getting people chatting. We've got some extremely passionate people. So like Dan says, you get people to make a playbook or whatever, or just chatting about your ideas, putting things out there, playing, watching, trying to organize your own things. Like, maybe you review a game together or something. I think just encouraging that kind of behavior as like a natural thing is going to be pretty crucial to like laying the groundwork of where we want to be at.
Yeah, excellent. So yeah, that was it. Did you have any other silly questions, Stu, or are you happy with? I'm
all silly question now. Thanks, mate.
Fair enough. So I think before we say thanks to both candidates for coming on it, we'll ask them if there's anything else that they wanted to say that we haven't discussed. So we'll go to you first, Liam.
Yeah, I appreciate very much being part of this election. I think it's whoever wins, I think it's going to be a big job. I think either of us is up to the task. So, vote the way you wish. It's not going to be a slight against either of us. We're both still going to be in and around the England sphere. So going forwards. So yeah, it's been a pleasure to this point.
And you, Dan? Anything
Yeah, I mean, as
we haven't
Steve
said?
said, it's a bit of an odd sense because we're kind of, we're obviously against each other from a sense of we have our own visions of what we want to achieve, but we are friends. One of my best tournaments from last year was spending time with the TNT guys. My only regret was not taking enough indigestion tablets. So yeah, it's really important to both of us. We're both very, very keen to try and shape Team England in the way that we want to see it evolve. I knew that when I stood for election last year that I wouldn't be able to get everything I wanted in place in the first year, that I needed to build momentum and consensus. I needed to create that shared space for us to start talking together in a way that we'd never talked before. The fact that we have so much great conversation on Discord is just something that we just didn't have 12 months ago. And the fact that people are using it so much and there's been so little drama is kind of a real testament to how successful that was. So I'm really keen to be re-elected so that not only do I get a chance at being successful for Team England once again and winning more national titles for us and getting us back to where I think we should be, but also to evolve the ideas that I started 12 months ago, so that we'll be in a really strong position for the rest of the decade.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for your time, and best of luck to you both. Obviously, only one of you can win, so but like you say, I'm sure you'll both be in around the setup. Voting starts tomorrow, which is Monday the 3rd, for a week. So I assume finishes on the Sunday. To vote, you need to be, correct me if I'm wrong on this, you need to be registered as English on the NAF and have played one NAF game in the last 12 months. We'll link the Squad England Discord where all the voting information will be. We're going to put this as a podcast and hopefully on YouTube if we can suss the technical side of that as well. So hopefully lots of people will be able to see and hear what you said. But yeah, thanks very much both for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us on.
Cheers.